FTN Team Preview Series is back with the Kansas City Chiefs, the team you probably want to know the most about. And I go to my guy, Mr. Reliable, has fantastic insight, Jesse Newell, Chiefs beat reporter for the Kansas City Star. Follow him on, I guess it's now X, Jesse, at Jesse Newell. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to start right away. Talk to me about the wide receivers. I've seen your content, putting out the videos and thoughts. Who is going to be the lead guy here? Kadarius Toney, Skyy Moore. Talk to me about how you think these touches are going to break down in the most explosive offense in the NFL.
Yeah, obviously Travis Kelce, you start with him. Yep. He's the tight end that still is a receiver. But for just talking the receiver, I think you mentioned the two that I would put up there. Skyy Moore has been with the first team for every snap when they've had two receivers on the field. Guys are expecting big things from him this year. He's expecting big things from himself. And if you look at some of the metrics out there, he did pretty well creating separation last year. It's just he didn't know the playbook, and it's really difficult in Andy Reid's offense in the first year to kind of know exactly what you're doing. So I would put my poker chip on Skyy Moore to have a much bigger season this year than his 22 catches and 250 yards last year. They're expecting a lot of him this year. Kadarius Toney, too. The problem with him, obviously, is that he had knee surgery here recently. Brett Veach, from a report from ESPN, said that they still expect him back for week 1. So we'll see how that all plays out. But if he can stay on the field, obviously he has some very explosive things that he can do with the football, and they think that he can do more in the passing game. But if I'm picking one of those receivers, obviously MVS is going to be a guy that's always in there, sort of a steady guy for the Chiefs. But if you're looking for fantasy football upside or a guy to take a huge step in his second year, I definitely go with Skyy Moore.
What about the other guys? Rashee Rice, Justyn Ross, here in the fantasy community, we love Justyn Ross. We're rooting for him. How are they progressing here through training camp?
Yeah, so I mean, they're progressing well. I just would sort of take a deep breath with both of them. Rashee Rice is a guy that is going through a lot right now. And I just talked about Skyy Moore's development last year, where he's learning the play calls. He's learning where to line up. Everything is getting thrown at them early on. And Skyy Moore really never got over that hurdle last year. That's what Rashee Rice is going through. Only he's doing that with a lot of other things going on. He was in a no-huddle offense last year with SMU. And now he's a guy that has to run back to the huddle, get this play call, this really long play call, where Matt Nagy, the offensive coordinator, was actually explaining this to us today, which is in college, you get very short play calls because there's no huddle. They don't really have that much to go through. Now you're learning the long play call. What do you hear? What part is for you? Where do you line up? He's going through all those things. So he's looked good at certain moments in camp, but again, just kind of the rookie receiver under Andy Reid. It's been difficult for those guys to get on the field and produce. So I would just caveat a little bit with him and maybe take a step back with what he can do, especially this year. If you're talking dynasty, obviously we can talk about some different things with that. But for this first year, they're going to use him. They're going to utilize him, but having huge expectations might be too much. Justyn Ross has been mixed in, kind of like Rashee Rice, mixed in with the first team, mostly second team snaps. He's a good route runner. He's a tall guy. A couple caveats with him, things to watch for. He hasn't played in a real football game in 21 months. This is going to be 21 months coming up, this first preseason game against the Saints. So can his body handle it? Obviously, he's had a neck. He's had all sorts of things, other injuries to go through. So if he can stay on the field, that's big. But like I said, big guy, good route runner. He seems more like a red zone option to me, where he can go up and high point a catch. Patrick Mahomes hasn't always utilized that skill set a bunch in the Chiefs offense, but right now I would say he's working in. He seems like he's going to make the roster to me, which I wasn't sure going into this about a month ago, but that's really good positive signs for him. But as far as maybe the fantasy hype, I would back off it just a little bit. I would definitely say Skyy Moore is ahead of those two.
Great. Let's turn to the backfield. Great insight there. Thank you, Jesse. Isiah Pacheco, of course, injured. Looks like he's progressing. Update on him. Jerick McKinnon, phenomenal year last year. Can he repeat that? And CEH still hanging around a little bit. Talk about the backfield here in Kansas City.
Yeah, obviously Pacheco came on at the end of last year. He had surgeries on both his hand and his shoulder in the offseason. He's still in the yellow non-contact jersey with the Chiefs, but they're ramping him up. He should be ready for week 1, good to go. And I would expect him to be kind of the go-to back, if you will, for especially running plays. Now, he's shown better hands in this camp, and obviously keeps adding to his skill set when it comes to pass protection, which is really important for the Chiefs as well. So we'll see potentially if his role grows a little bit. Combined in the regular season and postseason, he had 1,000 rushing yards, so that was a good total for him. But I would expect him to be the lead back for the Chiefs. Jerick McKinnon, it feels weird to say this, but last year's AFC Offensive Player of the Month in December, because he caught basically every touchdown pass that Patrick Mahomes threw. So he'll have a role. The Chiefs trust him in pass protection. He's getting up there in age, but again, he was productive last year for the Chiefs in the role he had. Really good in the pass game. If we're talking fantasy, that's obviously a PPR option based week to week on kind of what the Chiefs do. CEH, Who knows his role? We talked to him this past week. He said he asked the Chiefs coaches in the offseason for what they want him to work on, what his role might be. And in the past, they've kind of answered his question. This year, they didn't really. So he just kind of worked on everything. He seems to me like a guy that potentially you're kind of just keeping an asset right now. I mean, if the Chiefs had an injury go down, they'd be happy with him in there as a third back. If they don't, then maybe you have a change of scenery guy for a 24-year-old, potentially get a trade going, and somebody would take a chance on a former first-round pick to see what else he has. The name I want you guys to listen out for is Deneric Prince. He's an undrafted rookie out of Tulsa. He's done everything for the Chiefs. I mean, they love him. He's almost exactly on the Pacheco path from last year, which is going to be starting kick returner, probably mixing some carries at the beginning of the season. But by the end of the season, we'll see. He's actually catching passes better than they expected him to, and he did not catch many passes at Tulsa. So a name to keep an eye on for way late if you're in your fantasy drafts. But he is a guy that, again, the path for a Pacheco path from last year, where not much usage early, kick returner, but by the end of the year they're getting him more and more snaps. That's definitely possible with a guy like that.
Don't want to leave out the defense here. Of course, that's critical to the Chiefs here, looking to continue and get yet another Super Bowl defend here. Talk about Chris Jones. Talk about the Chiefs defense, how they're looking so far, and your thoughts heading into the season.
Yeah, Chris Jones is the whatever cliche you want to use, the straw that stirs the drink. He does everything for them up front, was obviously one of the top 3 defensive players in the league last year. He's still continuing his holdout in the last year of his deal. We talked to Brett Veach, the GM for the Chiefs, a couple of days ago here at the Star, and he told us that the plan is. I actually asked him. I said, "Is the plan?" Tyreek Hill a year ago in March, you guys traded him and got draft picks. I know it's a different timeline, but is a trade possible? And he kind of almost cut me off and said, "No, that's not something that's on the table that they're looking at." So it seems like either they're going to get a long-term deal done with Chris Jones to make him happy, which they still seem optimistic about, or if that doesn't happen, at some point, Chris Jones is going to show up and he's going to play for the Chiefs this year and then get a huge contract from somebody next year. Either way, he should be with the Chiefs at some point, but it would help them out because right now the defensive line is a little bit thin. Charles Omenihu, who they picked up in free agency from the 49ers, the league announced a 6-game suspension for him for the personal conduct policy. So he's out for a long time. That's more than a third of the season, of the regular season. Felix Anudike-Uzomah for the Chiefs, their first-round pick. He has not developed as either side had hoped, either him or the coaches. He's been mostly in with the second and third string, so he's got some development to do. So defensive line is a question at this point, a question mark, and so we'll see if they have any reinforcements there or if guys develop. But I think where they have to feel really good is the linebacking core. Not only do they have the guys coming back like Nick Bolton, who set the franchise record for tackles last season. Willie Gay's been there a while. Leo Chanel, a second-year player who's developing. But they also got Drew Tranquill from the Chargers, who's really good in coverage. So they have him. And then all these rookies from last year, Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams, Trent McDuffie, Brian Cook, all those guys in the back in the secondary, it's their second year now. So they know better what they're doing, better communicating. So if the Chiefs are going to take a jump defensively, I think it's on that back end, those guys breaking down some of those coverage angles, so those areas that were open last year and being able to communicate better and know what they're doing better. Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator, maybe getting into his bag more a little bit this year than he was a season ago with a bunch of rookies.
Great stuff as always, Jesse. Last question, we'll get you out of here. As the games begin, of course, we had Hall of Fame game last week, but now the games for the majority teams, including the Chiefs, will start. Talk to us about 1 or 2 players to keep an eye on. One could be Prince. Sounds like could be Deneric Prince. Who are 2 guys that we should keep an eye on that you think may surprise us, either rookie or second-year player, somebody you think can really make an impact as the season goes on for Kansas City?
Yeah, I think I mentioned the 2 that I would keep the biggest eye on, especially if it's kind of from a national perspective that people might not have the high expectations for. I definitely think it's Skyy Moore. Again, 22 catches, 250 yards last season. I think most people kind of considered it to be sort of a lost year for him, even though he caught the touchdown in the Super Bowl. He had a big punt return in the AFC Championship game to build his confidence. But I think big things are ahead for him, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's up there 800, 900 yards this year because the Chiefs need somebody to catch the ball on the outside, and he's been one of the most productive guys at camp and a guy that they continue to get touches for, whether it's end arounds or even Patrick Mahomes flipping the ball behind his back. Skyy Moore caught that pass as well, if you saw the viral video. And then, Deneric Prince. He is – I mean, he's 2023's Isiah Pacheco, only he catches more passes. He is the same type of back. He's big. He's fast. They have the stat out there called speed score, which kind of combines how fast a running back is with how tall you are. The number 1 leader in speed score in 2022 NFL draft class was Isiah Pacheco. Number 1 in speed score in 2023, Deneric Prince. Guess who was 2? Number 2 was Bijan Robinson. Number 3 was Jahmyr Gibbs. So again, that's the type of guy to look at in this camp. I think the Chiefs really think that they found something with him, getting him undrafted out of Tulsa. And like I said, that Isiah Pacheco path where at least he can potentially have some carries and some chance to get in the offense, it seems to be there.
Folks, no one's better with the Chiefs. Jesse Newell on X at Jesse Newell, Kansas City Star. Amazing work as always, sir. It's always a pleasure talking to you for all these years. Thanks for a few minutes. I know you're busy. Go ahead. Can't wait for the season to start.
All right. Appreciate it, Mike.